All right. How is everybody doing today? We are about to start the monthly challenge for July 2023 with the prompt of It Was a Night to Remember. And as always, I'm pretty excited to go through these with you because everybody ended up doing a very different sort of illustration for this prompt, which is really cool to see. And I might go through some of the study challenges as well because we kind of did like a create a character out of the reference image thing. And just so you guys know too, the new prompt is up as well for the month of August. And I kind of did a similar thing where I'm like design a character from this like kind of generic like model. I just thought that was an interesting looking like person to, you know, put an outfit on or turn into an alien or do whatever you want to do with her. Hey Saria, how's it going? Thanks for joining. And for anybody that's just joining as well, yeah, as I mentioned, I'm doing this in the Hangouts today as opposed to the Art Talks channel, so that if you guys want to ask me questions, feel free to unmute your mic and we can chat and kind of make this a little bit more casual today since Alice isn't with me today. She is seeing family. Okay, so looking through these for this month, and I know, it kind of, in terms of the winner of the month, it's more so just like, I guess, bragging rights sort of thing for the month. But I think I would have to choose Pal's piece for this month just because I feel like Pal had probably the most completed illustration that followed the prompt for the month. So congrats, Pal, whenever you get a chance to see this. I think that's a really, really cool piece, as always, with his stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to go through some of the pieces with you guys. Like Markov is here. BRO, you didn't. I guess you didn't submit something this month, right? I don't see anything from you unless I missed it. Let me know if I missed something. But since Markov is here, I might just go through his piece first. I didn't submit this one. Oh, yeah, that happens sometimes. It is what it is. Maybe this upcoming month. I'm interested to see if you try to do something with this upcoming month's prompt because I know we've talked about this before, but you're always like super ambitious with your illustrations, and it might be cool to see how you handle just like nailing down a really detailed and finalized character design. That might be pretty cool. Okay, so I definitely see how Markov's piece can relate to the prompt. It was a night to remember. This is something that never in a million years you could not pay me to do. I would never go skydiving. I'm way too afraid of heights. But let me know if you guys have gone skydiving before. Okay, let's see. I like that you have the little guys like looking out the plane, almost like to make sure that this character has like safely executed the dive. I think there's a couple things in terms of maybe proportion and lighting on this piece that I think could be fixed up. And, obviously, Markov, I've seen a bunch of your other pieces, so I know at this point that you can definitely nail those things. So it might just be a good reminder in general. And it kind of looks like, I'm not sure if you're calling this one like totally completed or if you were still sort of in the process of like rendering out, but it also does look kind of odd that the background is pretty painted, but then you've got some kind of like line arty sort of stuff, and then like the plane feels very flat in relation to the character and in relation to the background. So you know
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I didn't finish this. I had like 1 day to do this, so
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
it's totally unfinished.
Okay, cool, cool, cool.
My aim is actually to get rid of all the lines and
Render it
bring
out.
the 3D out. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, maybe I can just give you some tips then, like kind of for when you get to that point as well. So let me think for a second. I think the first thing I'd kind of note is like the bloom that would probably happen whenever you have like a strong light source behind something. Like these rays are going to, cast like and keep going until they hit something, right? So we probably want to say that there's, I guess there'd probably be less atmosphere up this high in the sky, but we can kind of pretend because it's an illustration. And it might be hitting some of those points on the figure and casting a little bit of like a lighting bloom on the sides of the
Mm-hmm.
figure. And I think that'll just also tie this figure into the background a little bit more. I also think just in general, like I was saying in terms of the anatomy, uh, it's almost like this leg is kind of doing something wonky in comparison to this leg. Like you might want to make sure you're trying to like mimic the positioning of the legs. I mean, I know some people are more flexible than others, but just make sure you're not being too exaggerated with how far the hips can fly apart.
Uh-huh.
So I think that would help. Also, this arm, I get that maybe the body has a little bit of a twist into it. So like if we did a crosshair for the body, I can zoom this in a bit as well. Like the center of the chest might be pointing slightly this way, which would then push this arm kind of forward a bit. And the arms are kind of like going back like this. But if you're going for that subtlety, it's a really good idea to just make sure as you're figuring out the character or the pose that everything is kind of in line. Because it looks right now like the chest is slightly tilted, but then this arm is like higher up than this arm. And I'm not really sure like where the shoulders connect and everything. So yeah, just kind of really focusing on the anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in a lot of your pieces, you focus a lot more on background elements. Would you say you're more of an environment artist in general?
Perhaps,
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah. So it might just be good. Maybe this upcoming challenge as well might be good for you since it is like more character focused to just see what you can do, like getting like a really realistic character down with good proportions and good lighting and everything. Because I know you can render like extremely well. I've definitely seen that on your other pieces. And something about the face too. Just I don't know. Did you use reference for this?
I used a reference, but that was a girl actually. I didn't want a girl. I wanted like a crazy Chinese guy jumping out of
Gotcha.
a.
So I don't know. Maybe you could just find like a like Asian man like scared or something like that, and find a face that like would fit on this skydiver body basically, and almost like use multiple references together to kind of mash that up. But if I were to go in and kind of like do a paint over of this face, yeah, I mean, I definitely see the features. It's just I don't know. I think maybe you've elongated the head just like almost too much. The other thing too, when drawing teeth are so weird to paint because when you draw the spaces or you draw the like occlusion shadows in between the teeth, it can look like very like off-putting. So especially because the teeth are so small on this character, it might almost be better to kind of like blend them in a little bit more. It just helps it not look so like like you're drawing teeth like blocks like this. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? And that's really a recommendation for anybody when they're tackling teeth is like you can kind of hint at the fact that there's spaces, but try not to be so heavy-handed with it. Let's see too. The other thing as well that I notice is like obviously you have this really strong backlight because it's nighttime, right? Nighttime scenes are particularly hard to paint, and that's why I assigned this in general. So you almost like need to pretend sometimes like there is more of a frontal facing lighting, and I don't know, we could pretend that the moonlight is casting off of a cloud, and that the cloud is bouncing light back onto the front of the face. But I almost just want to like nudge up some of these features just a little bit so that you can kind of like round everything out. It's not so I don't know, just like backlit.
It,
It just looks kind of strange. Or
I think the shadow, the core shadow is on his nose and mouth,
the core
where
shadows on.
the yeah, around that.
Yeah, and
Maybe.
what I'm suggesting is maybe we like bounce some light back in to the face, even if
Uh-huh.
it's kind of unrealistic. And what we can do is we can bounce some light back in, and then we can brighten the light, right, and make it really dramatic, so that it doesn't feel so weird that we're bouncing light back in. I mean, like films do this quite a lot in night scenes. Like they'll literally like uh, put blue lights that cast like in a forest or something like that to like make pretend that there's this like nice blue moonlight casting in, but it's pretty unrealistic. But sometimes that's kind of just what you got to do to make a good
A nice
illustration
scene. Yeah.
work.
The character. I mean, it's just blues. You pick the color and it's blue. I tried to make some highlights underneath the valley, so it. I was trying to bring his 3D, like his pose. I think so. I didn't have time to finish it.
Sure,
The
sure.
parachute needs some more detailing, some more shadows in it.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you mean. Like you want to try to create this like dimensionality. So I know a lot of what I'm probably suggesting is stuff you were going to do anyway. But I think it's just good to kind of get a reminder sometimes. Also, his eyes look like a little like cross-eyed. Maybe just take note of that. And also, the the what would you call it? The local color of his eyeballs are the whites of his eyes are going to be brighter than the local color of his skin. So we don't want to go pure white for that, but we definitely want to brighten that a little bit. So like from a distance, you can still see his eyeballs, you know.
Uh-huh.
And if I turn this on and off too, you can kind of see how I'm really trying to bump up the lighting. And because the
Hmm.
moonlight is so bright and it's so close to the figure, we can get pretty close to the brightness of the moonlight casting light on the figure.
Hmm. And another thing is the airplane and
Mm-hmm.
the figure are they don't share the same
Plane.
art style.
Oh, art style.
Because
Yeah.
yes, the figure has some smudge, and the plane is flat, totally flat.
Yeah, yeah. But you're planning on rendering that anyway, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get that. That's you've kind of just blocked this in for now. That's totally cool. It gets the idea across at least. The other thing as well that this is helping to do is it's sort of reinforcing the silhouette. Like the character's silhouette's getting a little bit lost just because like these gloves are almost the same value like as the sky behind him. So if we pop that out a little bit more, it's obviously going to help his silhouette like be much more
To, re-
dramatic and
to
interesting.
read to read better. Yeah.
Yeah. You might even want to just be like, oh, he's wearing a white shirt so that the blue sky is not like like in a night scene like this, it would still tint his shirt blue, but it would just allow the local color to be a little bit lighter, right? So that's another thing you can do is just think about like your colors and how they would interact with each other. And then if you had like a lighter like gray or white shirt and then you had the dark straps, like that would help the contrast on his
Yeah.
outfit as well, right?
I had a plan for this, which was the guy is holding two torches,
Oh, that would have
so I
been
can
pretty
have
cool.
two lights on his face.
Mm.
That was my
I think the only thing though is
because
if you I would do that if you wanted to get rid of the moon or if you wanted
yes,
to pretend like the moon was like over to the side more, right?
or because the distortion of the lens, we can shrink the moon to a more
Sure,
visible. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, because I'd be worried that if there's a big like stick with the light coming out here, it'd kind of like
Mm,
interfere with.
it conflicts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we can brighten his shirt. Um,
And also, I feel the arms are too small for the size of his head in my render. So,
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but you are trying to show that like really crazy perspective. The other thing you could do is exaggerate it even more because you have that like warped camera and make his head like really big. Maybe we could try that. Make it look like he's like very foreshortened. That could be kind of cool. What's up, Matilda? Thanks for joining. And Matilda, I will try to upload last month's video today. I'm sorry for being so like out of it recently. I've just been, like I said in my message, like really slammed with stuff. So I'll try my best.
I saw the episode you mentioned last month.
Uh, what do you mean? The episode of what?
The episode, the cartoon.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
What'd you
really
think?
nice, really nice, really nice.
Thanks, man. Yeah, he's talking about the short film I worked on for Disney Plus called Kizazimoto, and I don't know if I still don't know if I'm allowed to say like exactly what assets I worked on, but I will say that a lot of my concept art actually ended up getting into the film, which is really freaking cool. And I will say too that some of my straight up like paintings made it into the film, which I was kind of surprised about. So if you happen to catch anything that's 2D in there, it could have possibly been mine. Yeah, it was a pretty fun project to work on. Yeah, I almost think that this is kind of cool. Like it like reinforces
The perspective,
the
yeah.
perspective, right? Like, yeah, and then maybe make the plane even smaller. I guess we could just clip
Hmm.
that out and try that really quickly. You're also kind of getting a weird tangent with the wing and the parachute, so I would just try to move those things around a little bit. Almost like, because also, right? Think about this too. If this person had jumped out, the plane would have passed by, right? A little bit more. So I almost think the plane would be like down here. And then, sorry, I know you guys are messaging. I'll check that in a second. I'm just trying to think this through. It almost will help create more of like this triangular shaped
Hmm.
composition. So, something to think about. Is this a monthly challenge stream? Yes, it is, Dan. I'm being a little more casual today because Alice is on a trip, so it's just me with you guys today. And yeah, I'm also just a heads up too, guys. I'm trying to I'm trying my best to help improve our just Discord communication a little bit more because we kind of need to up our numbers a little bit for our Discord partnership. So if anybody just wants to like write in the general chat or something like that or like post an image or anything like that, that's gonna help us right now. Like I said in my message, I have a baby coming soon. Alice has also been helping me with other work on my video games, so we've been like I don't want to make it sound like an excuse, but we've been just slammed the past couple months, and unfortunately, I have not been around to hang out with you guys as much as I would like to. So, in order for us to keep things sort of rolling in the with the partnership and with the Discord and everything, as much as you guys can like participate and just like sharing and talking to each other is going to be like very very helpful for us right now while we're kind of tackling stuff. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, BR. Hopefully you can disclose that later. Yeah, I gotta ask them just like when I can actually share my work. I don't know if I'll ever be able to share the concept art I did, which is kind of brutal. It's fine, better busy than bored. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I definitely don't want to come off like I'm complaining because things are going really good. It's just been freaking busy. Um, I think I lowered this plane a little bit too much. I think also, Markov, you have this tendency to like make your compositions like too big, too wide. It's like, can we like cut off the plane a little bit so the plane looks like it's flying off the page? You know, like maybe we could
Mm-hmm.
have nudged it even a little bit more to the left. I kind of like
Mm-hmm.
this more thin composition. Oops. Oops, I just messed that up. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think too. I just think that. And now we can put his head like in the lower third quadrant. Oops, now I'm moving the canvas. Ah, get out of here. Yeah, maybe something like that. This might be too thin. Probably a little too thin, but you get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, let me see if I have any other notes on this one. I'd probably also say that, especially if you look at like photos of skydivers, like you can just like really blow out the atmospheric perspective in this landscape because this is just so far back in space that it would be really low contrast. And again, it's going to help you. Maybe that's too bright, but it's going to help your character stand first and foremost, and then that will be the first read, and then the secondary read would be the plane. So it's kind of like,
So
yeah.
the figure, the figure is the darkest in value. Is the
So
closest.
this is what I need to clarify about atmospheric perspective because I think people like to think that the thing closest to us is always the darkest. That's not always the case. It's just the figure will have the most contrast. So it will have the darkest blacks and the whitest whites. In this case, it probably would be probably have the darkest values. Like you, maybe you can brighten this stuff up here just a little bit to let him like stand out a little bit more. But when we're talking about atmospheric perspective, we should specifically be considering contrast as opposed to like dark and light.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why does this feel like? Oh yeah, it's probably too bright, but maybe the moon is a bit too dominant in the composition. Yeah, we were just saying, I think right before you got on, Matilda, that he'd probably, with this perspective, like maybe just make the moon a little bit smaller. Dive footage, the plane would be way smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it depends on like how quickly the character like yeah, we have to like track the distance, right, of like how soon he's like jumped out of the plane. But okay, cool.
Okay.
I feel like that's enough notes. Yeah, I'm excited to see this
Thanks.
one rendered
Thanks,
out.
Mike. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. All right. Let's get to Matilda since she's here. What's up, Meglet? Thanks for joining. I'm here, but also at work. Okay. All right, let's see. Cool. I think I always forget this, guys. I hate to do this to you, but maybe I'll share in 720p as opposed to 1080. That might just help me be able to paint a little bit quicker. Hopefully it's not too terrible. Okay, cool. All right, here's Matilda's piece for It Was a Night to Remember. I think this is a very dramatic piece. Matilda, you my piece is pretty low resolution anyway. You usually have these very dramatic pieces, and I like that this one very much resembles like, oh man, I wish I knew my art history better, but it's like this looks like a museum painting. It looks like some historical thing that happened, and an artist was like painting this scene, which is kind of cool. Waiting for my pen to charge, then I can finally work on my drawing. Nice. I think, Matilda, what we want to do with this one too is like I was talking about with Markov's piece, like it's almost like the values on the bottom are the same values as on top. Like we really want to blow out this atmospheric perspective and just brighten stuff in the background a little bit, or lower the contrast, I should say, so that your foreground character stands out a little bit. Obviously, you wouldn't want to just go through like I did with the soft brush. You'd want to actually kind of like paint these values in. Maybe you could start off with a soft brush like that, but then take a hard brush and kind of dig back into it so that you have more of a like clean painterly transition. I think in terms of your composition as well, like it's like there's a couple things that just feel slightly wonky, and here, let's see what we can do to mess with this stuff. Like this character just feels a little bit low for how tall the composition is, for example. Oh, bro, why is this going so slowly? There we go. So maybe she's a little bit bigger. And this is where the kind of like sketch phase comes into play, right? The thumbnailing, I think, would be very helpful. Photoshop is having a stroke trying to paint while streaming. Yeah, for real. I don't know why. There we go. I think things have like kind of sped up a little bit. Yeah, I swear when I'm not streaming, it's not this choppy. Okay. Task manager, see highest usage. I mean, the highest usage is going to be Photoshop. I think I was recording. Yeah, this is better. I was recording gameplay for my game, and I think I was recording at a really high bit rate. So I just like lowered that. All right, let's get back to this. So what I was trying to do was move this figure up a little bit. I think this helps. What's up, pal? I chose your piece as the winner for this past month. So we haven't gotten to it yet, but I think it turned out pretty sweet. Okay, so with Matilda's piece, I think we want to add some atmospheric perspective. We want to push the front character up a little bit, And I think too, Matilda, maybe just like consider your grouping for compositions a little bit more. So in a composition like this that's more square, rectangular ish, it's probably a good idea to like put a group of things here, and then the burning building should maybe be like off here. So it's like you kind of have this separation, and what we can do is we can lead elements to the building. So like we can even be almost like kind of literal with it by creating pathways, um, you know, like an actual road, or you have all this wheat. You could have like a bunch of wheat that's kind of like pushed to the side, and everybody's like walking through it, like trying to escape. But I think the fact that like you have right now you have an element here, 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 here. There's just not kind of like a flowing grouping of like where things are. It's nice to group things together and then let your eye rest and then have another group of something somewhere else. So I'm just kind of doing what I can to like quickly like nudge things around and get a little bit more pleasing of a composition. Also, this like weird sort of like little hill like that doesn't feel totally realistic either. Let's do this. Yeah, sometimes I need to. It's this is why it's nice having Alice here because she can kind of fill in the silence. But sometimes I need to just like get in there and start painting, um, to think things through. And this is what I do in my own pieces too. Like I'll just like start noodling and then take a step back and be like, okay, like is this feeling right? A lot of painting and composition is kind of a cross between having knowledge and also just like feeling it out, just being like, does this feel right? And if it doesn't feel right, that's when you know you need to move things or alter things. I think too that the smoke coming from this torch is maybe a little heavy handed. Like this is where reference really comes in. Like would a torch really have that dark of and that thick of smoke coming off? Probably not. There'd probably be like a couple small licks of black like billowing in the wind. But what the way I'm trying to think about this again is in shapes. So like you're trying to set the stage of this like dark smoke coming off of the building. So maybe it's kind of, well, you also have the, I guess the torch is going this way because she's walking forward, but it kind of looks like what you're trying to do compositionally is have the smoke billowing this way, and then you have the torch and the light like this kind of pointing back into it. Um, so again, it's about like trying to figure out like, okay, how can we make this shape of the darkness interesting, and then maybe like everything else under here is like relatively bright. Because right now it almost looks like there's just like these strips of color. I wanted the clouds to mix with the smoke. So what you could do with that also is use color to introduce that. Like maybe you have more. I don't know. I don't know if those are the right colors. Yeah, maybe like introduce more like grays into the clouds to have them feel like they're kind of like different entities mixing in with each other. It also kind of like warms up the clouds a little bit. Might just knock all this stuff back a little bit and then kind of play around. And again, I think reference for this piece in particular would be really helpful because just kind of analyzing how smoke really works. I'm sure you can find instances of, something burning down. The other thing as well is like the structure in the background. I just can't even tell what it was. Like I get that it's burned down, but you have to think practically about timing, right? It's kind of like with Markov's piece. Like, okay, the character jumped out of the plane. How far would the person be, and how like far away would the plane be going at the speed it was going? So what I'm saying with this one is this person's like, I don't know, not even half a mile away. There's no way this house would have been like already burnt to the ground by the time the character's like, okay, screw this, I'm leaving, you know? So I guess what I'm saying is we'd probably see more of the structure of the house as it's burning instead of just like logs that have already like fallen over. As if there was a looming thunderstorm, it's a house, and she made them burn the house. The three at the side are humans. Okay. They burned the house and the humans. Is she not a human? That's what I'm confused about. Danger 2, now the witches are dead. We're doing a witches thing. Okay. So, if that's the case, then we're talking about storytelling and character design. She needs a lot more indication that she's a witch. However you can express that, because I really don't think there's any world in which, oh, she's not a witch. Another one to hunt. Someone to hunt. Yeah, the house intact is more dramatic. That's kind of like more along the lines of what I was thinking about. Um, yeah, Matilda, I think you have really cool stories in mind. It's just a matter of like getting all your thoughts together. It might even help to just like write out some notes for yourself. Like I don't know, even line by line. Okay, this has to do with a witch hunt. There's a character in the foreground with a baby on her back, and just like look at all of your notes and be like, okay, how can I represent these elements from my notes into my painting? Because I think a lot of times we have this idea that it's almost like you think other people are reading your mind to a certain extent, right? And a lot of us do this, but sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, would people even really get like the message I'm trying to portray with this story? And if there's any hesitation on that, then that means you either need to like simplify your story a little bit, or you need to do what you can to add that back in. So yeah, I feel like I'm kind of just like noodling over and over, but I think just the concept needs to be pushed a little bit more for this, because I think it's cool and I think it's effective, and I like kind of the positioning of your character. It's very dramatic as usual with your pieces, but I think maybe some like dead trees in the background would look really cool too. Yeah, I think you guys just need to look for reference a lot more too, because I see a lot of like, oh, I think this is what this is supposed to look like, and it just, you know, I, I know you guys have the skills to pull the paintings off. It's just like, oh man, if you just used reference, this would make it a lot easier on you and make it a lot more effective as well. So, just a little nitpick. Trying to like just bring a little bit more shape to this composition. And I understand this isn't like totally complete, but this is the other thing too with your guys' sketches at this point. Like realistically, you shouldn't even get into this detail of painting on your character if the rest of your composition isn't planned out appropriately or mapped out. It's again, it's just going to make your life a lot easier to really figure out your thumbnail or your very loose sketch and make it perfect from the get-go before you even start painting anything. Because what happens is then you get too in the weeds of like, the character needs to be rendered and blah blah. I'd almost rather at this point, because I know a lot of you guys can paint, right? In terms of my critiquing you, I'd almost rather help you make sure that you're being set up for a nice final polished piece if you're not able to like take the time to finish everything in a month, then to almost, I feel like I do this quite a lot, and it's whatever, but I'm just explaining because I'm trying to help you, right? Like I feel like a lot of times I have to like totally like rearrange your idea or something like that. So making sure you come in for the critique being like, okay, I've done the best I can to really compose this in a correct way and tell the story that I really, really want to tell. I think it would be easier at that point for me to be like, oh, okay, well then just make sure your lighting is going in this direction and this is going in this direction, or you think about thing A, B, and C, right? Because I guess what I'm saying is I feel like I see this same thing quite a lot from you guys, and I think just reference and doing thumbnails would go such a long way because you guys have really cool ideas. So hopefully that helps. And maybe it's just you guys don't quite know how to work out thumbnails, and if that's the case, let me know. Like, let me know in the chat right now if you're kind of confused about what I'm even talking about or like how to approach that. Because maybe that's what it is too, is you're just like not totally sure how to do that, and that's why this happens. Oops. Trying to just build some like depth around her. I know thumbnails, I often just really get really attached to certain layout and have a hard time coming up with others. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it's just a matter of like really planning it out, those beginning stages. Oops, what am I doing? Whenever I thumbnail, the end result would be way off and sometimes never really worked the way I wanted to in my head. And that's okay for your end result to end differently than the thumbnail, but I think the point is, well, first of all though, if you get really good at thumbnailing, like and you practice that over and over and over again, that doesn't end up happening because you kind of know how to craft something from the get-go, you know. It's a skill to learn how to thumbnail appropriately so that you can kind of follow your guides. You know, if it's along the line of like you're like, oh, the character's arm ended up here instead of here, you can't even see that. Like I'm basically saying like here instead of here, it's whatever, but I think the purpose of the thumbnail stage, even if you're working in color, like blocks of color or more of a detailed sketch, it's just sort of making sure you're planning things out like early on as opposed to starting to go into detail and then feeling like, oh, I gotta go and change a bunch of stuff. With compositions, you have to think about, and I don't tend to like follow rules per se. There's a couple rules I know that are helpful and assist me, but with composition, it's more thinking about groupings, patterns, and big shapes and points of interest, right? Like how can you lead the eye to the character, to the thing that you want the people to actually look at. So here's an example now if we go back and forth. So what I've done is I've made her the center of attention. I've pushed the house backwards and I'm trying to create like this sort of sweeping composition going back to the house. So she's the first read, and then as you look through the painting, you realize like, okay, she's walking away from the burnt house. Are you heading out, pal? Thanks for joining, man. Oh, Saria. I didn't catch that. I have to go. Thank you for today. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. This is what I wanted as a composition. Okay. And it's like if we were to start really early on, right? And I was just kind of sketching this out. I'd first try to visualize like the horizon line. Okay, where do I want the horizon line? I'd maybe even either raise it or lower it a little bit just so that it's not kind of smack dab in the middle where it is right now. Let's just say we wanted to raise it. So this is me going off of your idea, kind of starting from scratch. And I'd say, okay, we've got this little house on fire here. Okay, we want the girl walking away from it. Let's just put her here. Like this is how you can come up with compositions pretty easily. It's like you start working off of one point and you're like, how can I get everything else to connect to that point? And even if we just have stick figures for our thumbnail, like that's just going to be better. So at least we have something to kind of guide us going forward. So hopefully this helps. I think if you go back and you like render this out, this could be a really sick piece. There's a lot of like mood going on here. I'm almost thinking too. What just happened? I don't know if this is gonna work, but like having like a big like foreground element might cover the house too much. Okay, here's something cool we could possibly do with this too. You were talking about like witches and stuff like that. Like, okay, maybe this was like the entrance to the witch house, and there's like a weird like pentagram thing like hanging from here, and like skulls, you know, something, some kind of cool like that. There's like spider webs, and then it's almost like the house is like the burning house is like obscured. So it's like read one is the character, read two is the weird things hanging off the tree, and then read three is like this burning house in the distance. They're not witches, they just need a scapegoat. They need someone to blame and hunt. I think that you have like a very philosophical concept to your to your painting, and I think that's another thing to think about is like you wouldn't be able to really portray that without explaining that to somebody. At least I can't really think of a way. So it's almost like I'd either revise the way you're thinking about telling this story, or I would just be like they're actually burning down witches' houses and kind of leave it at that. Um, that's just my 2 cents, but yeah, try to think of ways in which you can definitely portray the story that you're trying to tell, or else it's kind of like you're just sort of confusing people. Yeah, without previous context, it's kind of hard to tell. It's a larger story without further explanation. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's see. All right, I think scallier pepper here. Yeah, she's here. Okay, cool. I'm trying to get to people's pieces who are in the chat here with us. So this was going off of the study. Yeah, I really like the way this one turned out too. Here's the reference just so we can see it. I think maybe with this one, I'll just be a little bit nitpicky because there's not a whole lot like wrong with it necessarily. I think it's just there's a small proportional issue. Her torso is just up a little too much. And I think really all you would really need to do is just kind of, and it makes her bicep, this whole arm look like not totally right. And maybe tilt this in a little bit more. Make it more like foreshortened space. Yeah. This is kind of a more of a suggestion. I don't know. I think having like a toe ring, because you have all these gold things on there, would just be a nice little touch over there, or like an anklet. What's up, Pineapple? Thanks for joining. Nope, not too late. We're still gonna go for a little bit. I like the like Nightcrawler kind of tail going on as well. Yeah, it's a cool character. This is something that I've commented on with your other pieces, Scallier Pepper, and I know to a certain extent it's a somewhat stylistic choice, but it feels a lot of times like you don't go quite to those like brights. Even though you're kind of casting a harsher light than in the reference, like that's cool because you know you're kind of creating a character. But if we're doing that, it's like let's try to like bump that up a bit and just like make it feel a little bit more energetic, I guess is a way to put it. And what you can do too when you're going for like a really bright is you can rim it with a sort of like really saturated color. And it creates this nice like almost like glowy effect to your light. And if you look at references of really bright lights hitting subjects, when the light wraps around the person, you get the this really bright light happening on the like Terminator, where the light is shifting into shadow. So this is a occurrence that happens in real life, but what we can do in our illustrations is exaggerate that a little bit, and it just makes it feel a lot more like interesting and magical. The eyes too, like we can make them look a little bit more wet by just kind of adding little hints of light. Make them feel like they're glistening. Maybe her nose too. Just a little bump of light to make her skin feel a little more shiny and not so matte. Vary in hue a bit more. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. So you've got these really like dark purples. What we can do is pull this more towards purple and kind of like gray it out. And I think that would kind of help with the shadows to warm them up a little bit more. What's hard is in the reference, you kind of just have a straight white light hitting. So all the skin tones, like there's not a lot of variation in color, but we can exaggerate that because we also have like this blue background. We have the warm elements of the clothing and everything like that. The other thing you could possibly do as well is add a little bit of like blush almost to the fleshy parts. Like you can even see on the character's knees, there's like more red. So we can kind of warm those areas up a bit, the elbows just a bit, the sides of the arms, and this would be kind of like final polish touch ups sort of things, but it does add to the character to add these little tiny hits of color. And I mean, this piece is really awesome, but I think you guys will see too once I do a back and forth, like how much like little tiny adjustments can change a lot in a piece. I'll just grab these actually. Yeah, just I think that was a good call, Matilda. The little shifts in color, I think, helps it a lot. I know she's not supposed to be human, but it makes it feel a lot more like a living person than like a flat kind of, yeah, make believe character. Okay, cool. I think you get the idea. I think you're on the right track with this as well. It looks awesome. Let's see. All right, who else is in the chat that submitted a piece? I'll do Powell's piece. Yep, no problem, Scallier Pepper. Hey Pineapple, if you wouldn't mind muting your mic, I'm just hearing scratches here and there. Thanks. Sweet. All right, pal. Nice. This is so cool. You always have like such. Oh, it's alright, Pineapple. Such like cute, like creative ideas. It's like that. My brain does not think like this. I'm just kind of like looking around with this piece. I think I'm trying to even think of what I could really critique with this. I guess your piece is a good example of composition. Maybe I can use it to help further explain what I was talking about with the grouping, right? So Pal has chose to group snowmen here. It doesn't mean there's only snowmen here. There's one guy here, there's one here, here, but they're spaced out in Z depth, right? Like some are closer to the camera, some are further away from the camera, but it's almost like he's doing the big, medium, small sort of principle. And then on top of that, what he's doing as well is leading our eye to the magician with the like aurora borealis from the big clump of snowmen, right? And then as kind of a final read, you get this like little house here. If I was to be super nitpicky, the only thing I would say compositionally is like it feels like it's directly in the center of the biggest snowman. I would nudge this over just a little tiny bit, and I'm just gonna do that by like clipping it out, and you guys will hopefully see that that will just like make a very slight improvement. Family's coming, thank you. No stress there. Cool, thanks for joining, Matilda. Yeah, this is super nitpicky, but I think pal, especially at the level you're at, you need to start hearing the really nitpicky stuff to to still like level up further. Okay, so there's that. That was bothering me. You see what that does? It's like so minor, but I personally think that helps. I also think that you could maybe pull this stuff in just a little bit so that it will wrap your illustration forward, because what's happening here, I'll do this quick. Very minor, but right now it's kind of feeling like you have like this guy kind of on the same plane as this guy, and then everything else is really in the background, but you have this like very wide image, and you have the tree lines curling in. So what I'm suggesting is just like curling them in just a little bit more so that it's kind of like cupping your illustration. Okay, I think that helps a little bit too. Um, Again, this is just I almost want to. Okay, I was gonna nudge the snowman over to the right a little bit because he feels like he's in a very slightly weird spot with this mountaintop. It's like the mountain is like about to go into the snowman's butt or something like that. So what we can do instead is maybe just pull the mountain point like back a little bit. Angle it a little bit differently. Very minor. Let's see what else. The other thing too is I think you want snowman, or sorry, penguin guy, penguin magician to be your first read probably. Unless you want the snowman to be the first read, but either way, I think that we can kind of make his little magic spell just a little more interesting. We don't need to go totally overboard. I probably would go overboard because that's just like my style with stuff like this, but I don't know. Just make his spell look cool, like draw some symbols or pop this out a bit. Just make it feel a little more magical and whimsical. And then the other thing to note as well is if we're expanding the light source on the wand, that means that some of that light source would hit back on the snowman too. And because this is a little bit of a warmer, it's white light technically, but I almost think we should just warm it just a little bit to create contrast in comparison to all the cools in the background. Then we can kind of create like a primary read by having a different color. I mean, you kind of have that warm light on the house back here as well, but I would tie that into him a little bit more. Seems like a giant snowman in the distance. I'm not sure how to fix that. I know how to fix it. I'll show you in a sec. I think it's because the hat is really dark and the dots are really dark. You just need to add a little bit of atmospheric perspective. I don't feel that way. I get where he is in space personally, but we can just kind of push back those values a little bit, and then what we can also do is push back the values on these mountains just a little bit too. I still feel, I think you're getting better at it, Powell, especially with the roundness of the snowmen. I'm really seeing the roundness of them, but some elements still feel kind of flat. Like, I think when I added this little hit of light on him, it just like automatically pops him out. I think this other penguin too. Just try to consider these shapes, because I really think that you have the type of style where like eventually you can get to this point where your paintings are going to straight up look like they were just clipped out of like a Pixar movie. And I think that should realistically be the goal for you, because it's going to set you apart, just purely on like kind of style. So I would do more studies of like screenshots and stuff like that too. But if you can get to this point where your rendering is also like up to par of your color and your composition, like you're going to be pretty unstoppable. So I would really focus on that personally. Such a minor change, but he feels more three-dimensional now, you know? Sweet. I think this looks really cool. All right, I don't really have much more to say about that. All right, let's see. Oh, Megalit's in here. Megalit, I know yours is like still kind of in a rough state, so I'm not gonna go over it too much. I just kind of wanted to take a look at it. Um, what's the deal with the people? Like, are these going to be like normal humans, or are they going to be your little like shadow guys? This is a really cool composition. Normal people. Yeah, I would definitely suggest you to finish this when you get the chance, because this looks really cool. If anybody played FF7 Remake or FF7, it reminds me of Wall Market, which is pretty cool. I would actually look at that part of the game as reference if I were you. I think you could get some cool inspiration from that. The stars are sea creatures, and they're coming down to the people this night. That's really cool. I like that a lot. I'd say compositionally, the one thing that feels kind of weird is the fact that you have this whale thing going that way and this whale thing going that way in kind of like a weird distance from each other. I'd either like make this guy a lot smaller and this guy a lot bigger, and like, I don't know, have him do something like this, and like if you were really gonna commit to them going different directions, he goes like this, so they kind of look like they're far away in space from each other. Um, like this one's coming like more towards the camera. I guess just try to fit them into perspective, like you have going on here, just like how these like stingrays feel like they're in perspective, and this guy feels like he's in perspective. Um, Yeah, I don't really have too much to say. Just yeah, plug away at this when you get the chance because I think this could turn out really cool. All right, here's Pineapple's piece. I know this is more of a line drawing. Um, from the study image. I think just it's almost like the same sort of uh, issue with the anatomy as with the other piece. I think it's a cool design. I would have liked to see this one rendered out and colored. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, just kind of lowering the torso a little bit, lowering the head a little bit so she feels just more kind of aggressive and like ready to pounce sort of thing. I think the foreshortening on this arm looks really good, and maybe just kind of like tilting the headline down a little bit because currently the face just looks like it's kind of flat and staring right at you. Maybe just kind of consider how you could tilt that line down a little bit. But yeah, I don't have too much to say about this either. I think this would be cool to render out, get a little illustration out of it, character illustration. Um, and then lastly, I know Alice isn't here, but she started on a piece, so I might as well just take a look at this quick. And Alice sent her DAS models as well as quick character designs. This is really cool to see. I really like these designs. Um, let's see. I think maybe the perspective of the ground feels just a little bit wonky. It's like kind of confusing where the horizon line is and like how these points would sort of match up to that. It almost feels like the road should be more like this. And yeah, I don't know, something maybe more like that. Um, the point of the horn also just feels kind of like it's doing a weird compositional tangent sort of thing with the statue. So maybe what I would do as well is I would almost just like push the statue off to the side a little bit more and give the horse more like breathing room. And then you can make this like fountain a little bit bigger and more dramatic. And maybe there's like, I don't know, things like coming around out of the fountain. Um, yeah, I think this is another instance of like um, just trying to plan out your environment earlier on and get it at least like locked in so that you're not having to like keep going back in and like fixing things because there's nothing more annoying than like trying to fix perspective when you've already started blocking elements out. um, but yeah, I think this is a cool piece. There's a lot of like emotion in the piece, and I think it's just a matter at this point of just like rendering it out a little bit more. I think also taking note of lighting, as we talked about with Scallier Pepper's piece, just like really hitting this metal with like bright brights to, and the horse as well, right? Like the mane would have light coming from the sky or the moon or whatever. And that's going to help like round things out a little bit more. not feel so like flat. I think this leg would probably have more shadow, and more shadow. And I think the sky, it's like so saturated. I would personally lower the saturation a little bit and let the saturation lie on the characters. So again, atmospheric perspective, we could just kind of like quickly like blow some of this stuff out. Whoa, not that much. Blow some of this stuff out a bit. So that's not interfering with the foreground characters. Yeah. This guy should get the same lighting treatment with the rim lighting as well. But cool. All right, guys. I think that's it. Just double check. Yeah, I think that's it. I appreciate you guys coming to hang out with me. I am going to try to upload those YouTube videos. I'm just going to try to do that now really quick so that you guys have them. The new monthly challenge is up. And yeah, by the next time we do one of these, I will have a baby in the house. So that's pretty crazy. And yeah, well, I'll just touch base with you guys whenever that happens. So thanks for hanging out. And as always, feel free to just hit me up if you guys ever have any art questions or anything. I will talk to you guys later. All right, bye.